Good afternoon, everybody. I see we're just a few minutes after noon, so we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, good afternoon and welcome on behalf of the Western New York Women's Foundation. Thank you for joining us for Pathways to Progress, Accelerating the Possibilities, a virtual speaker series, which is sponsored by Impressia Bank. I'm Allison Wainick. I'm a past advocacy committee chair for the Western New York Women's Foundation and a current emerita board member. I have 25 years of experience in communications, PR, and government relations with a focus on scientific and medical nonprofits. I split my time between Washington, D.C. and Buffalo, and I hold a master's in communications management from Syracuse University. Joined today by a phenomenal panel of women who will share a little bit about our topic today, which is occupational segregation. So what I'll do is do a brief high-level introduction of the speakers, and then we'll sort of go back and let them introduce themselves. First, start off with Bo Sokolov. She is the Senior Vice President of Regulatory Compliance at Citigroup. She led the global regulatory change implementation and compliance and established compliance programs, including governance and other control processes. She holds an MBA from SUNY Buffalo. Also joining us today is Jess Fuchs. She is the Senior Project Manager for Montante Solar. She has 4 years of solar experience and 15 plus years in the industry. Among her key projects is this $38 million University of Buffalo engineering building. Oops. Also joining us today is Alyssa Kelleher, and the Director of Office of Veterans Affairs and Military at University of Connecticut, and she is a colonel in the Connecticut Army National Guard. She currently serves as the Deputy Chief of Staff of Personnel in the Connecticut National Guard and holds a Bachelor in Political Science and a Master's in Human Resources Management from University of Connecticut. Finally, also joining us is Chairwoman April Baskin. She is the Chairwoman of Erie County Legislature and a racial equity strategist focused on economic empowerment in underserved communities. She's led several key initiatives, including the NFL Community Benefits Agreement, and she's sponsored over a dozen laws, including the Erie County Office of Health Equity Act. She's an award-winning leader and recently endorsed as the Democratic candidate for the 63rd District New York State Senate, and a big supporter of the Western New York Women's Foundation. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Impressia Bank, who's sponsored the Pathways to Progress, Accelerating the Possibilities virtual speaker series. And with that, I'll circle back to Bo and let her say a few words about herself.
Hey, everyone. Again, I'm Bo Sokolov. I am originally from Bulgaria, and I moved to the US as a student. I started at Canisius College at the time. It's now a university here in Buffalo. And my first job was a temp position with HSBC. I then moved around quite often, probably every 1 to 2.5 years within HSBC, exploring different operations, servicing careers, and basically learning more skill and knowledge base. It wasn't until I got my MBA from UB that I landed a management position and then discovered my passion with compliance. So I then took a role as the compliance manager for a local company, local mortgage company. So I was reporting directly to the president there. And then I was recruited to Citigroup. I've been in compliance ever since, and I've been managing, currently I'm managing a global policy for Citigroup and working for the surveillance intelligence unit, which means we're basically using data and metrics to ensure compliance with laws and regulations. I'm not sure if you want me to mention anything else. Sorry, Allison, you're muted.
We can move to the next guest panelist, Jess.
Thank you for having me, everyone. I'm Jess Fuchs. I'm a senior project manager for Montante Solar. started my construction career as a plumber and heating contractor here in the city of Buffalo. And working as a tradesperson, I sort of got exposed to the larger project lifecycle and project delivery system. So I went back to school at University of Buffalo and got a master's in structural engineering with a concentration in construction management. And through that was afforded the great opportunity to work with LP Simonelli and learn from them project lifecycle, project delivery, and kind of work my way up into a project management role. After that, I joined Montante Solar, where I continue to do project management, but now with a solar focus, running the project management division for solar.
Great, thank you. And Jess, I'm not sure if you're aware, but your camera is off. And then next up is Alyssa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. If it looks on here like I have two jobs, it's because I do. So today I am not going to focus on my job at the University of Connecticut, which is a wonderful role where I'm assisting military and military affiliated students throughout all of our campuses. But today I am here to kind of focus on my military career. So I'm a colonel in the Connecticut Army National Guard. I've had a mix of regular Army and National Guard experience. I first was enlisted as a bridge crew member, which means that I built bridges over both water and gaps. And then I commissioned as an officer, and I've been doing my officer career now since 2004. Started doing logistics with the Army, and then have transitioned into a second career field, more of like personnel. But what really is my passion in the military is leadership, team building, that sort of thing. So focused a lot in those areas throughout my career, and recently promoted to 06, which is colonel. And you know, this board, I am the only female colonel in the Connecticut Army National Guard. So I'm sure we'll talk more about that later, but happy to be here, and happy to hear what all of you have to say today.
Great. Thanks, Alyssa. And Chairwoman Baskin.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is April Baskin. I'm a county legislator in the county of Erie. And I've also been serving as the chairperson of the legislature. That's the person who presides over all legislative districts since 2019. I first got elected in 2017 to represent District 2, which is the east side and the west side of Buffalo. And in that time, I have introduced 18 local laws, all of which that have passed, negotiated keeping the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo alongside the county executive and the governor, and introduced the concept to the city of Buffalo of the Buffalo Bills investing in a community benefits agreement, $100 million over the course of 30 years that will help change the lives of communities all across Erie County. I also, like the slide says, founded the Office of Health Equity. I most recently passed a public art law, which allows the county to engage with public artists as small businesses and hire them to create public art across the county. The language access bill, which calls on county agencies to translate vital documents into the top 6 most commonly spoken languages across the county to help people who are engaging with county government, be it the DMV or the Office of Real Property Tax, Veteran Services, Senior Services, truly understand how to engage with county government and the documents that they need to submit in order to get resources to have the best quality of life that they can have. I'm a mother of 2 children. I Buffalo native, went to Buffalo State College, Performing Arts High School. I love my city. I love fighting for people who do not have anyone to fight for them. It brings me joy to make people's lives easier, to see a problem and help people solve it. And that is what has propelled me to be a candidate for New York State Senate. Should I be elected on November 5th, I will be the first female Democrat and the first Black woman in history to ever go to the New York State Senate from the city of Buffalo. So again, thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much. So now we'll kind of move into the career journeys portion. I know each of you sort of highlighted a little bit of what you're doing and a little bit maybe how you got there. But now we'd like to delve a little bit deeper into that. Your current roles, sort of how you got there. Did you envision yourself in these roles? And what are the steps that you took to elevate to where each of you are? And I'm going to stop sharing so we can actually kind of get a look at everybody. And feel free to dive right in. You don't have to go in any order.
I can get started. So we have a little bit of a joke in compliance that nobody actually envisions themselves landing in compliance. There is no degree that you take specifically to be in compliance, and your career path kind of lands you there as you progress. So for me, it really was being able to move career paths often and learn different aspects of the financial industry. So basically for me, it was really taking chances on different opportunities that were open, and, progressively, also obviously, with the education, as I mentioned, getting my MBA opened a lot of doors as well.
Thanks, Paul. I'll jump in. On your heels there, I think seizing opportunities and also pursuing education were key in my advancement as well. Definitely didn't see myself here when I was an undergrad, for example. I was a math major and, at 18 years old, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So it was kind of a series of events. My family moved to the Buffalo area after I graduated college, and we started a business together. And that's how I started picking up the skilled trades. And again, just kind of seizing those opportunities as they're put in front of you, and taking advantage, trying to advance yourself, getting education and furthering that way, to networking through education, getting the opportunity with LP Simonelli and advancing that way. I've been really very fortunate for the people that I've worked with, and having had those opportunities put in front of me. So happy to be where I'm at.
Great. Thanks, Jess.
I think a lot of the same, it's interesting to see the common themes of capitalizing on opportunities and challenges and doing things that other folks might consider as scary or too hard, or, too much time commitment, taking those things on and doing well in them and making a name for yourself that way, I think is definitely part of the career journey. I definitely did not see myself still being here at this point, 24 years after I started. But the more things that I did, especially in my younger years, the more I liked it. So a lot of that was also, saying it's okay to change my path and to follow a path of something that I ended up enjoying and feeling passionate about and finding meaning in. And being able to say, hey, this was the plan I thought I had, and I'm going to go this other way. And it ended up working out pretty well. So that's definitely a part of it. And then I would also say seconding always, keeping yourself open to new opportunities and learning. So I would agree with that too, is, you don't know what you don't know. And then you attend a school or a seminar and education, meet new people. And then you say, hey, that looks like something I'd want to look into, and continue to pursue that path. So I think a lot of that was kind of just building on those things is how I continue to stay and get to where I am today.
I'd agree. I think the longer that I have been an elected official, and it's been 7 years, my comfort level increases, my imposter syndrome decreases, and I began to see myself doing more once I become more confident and skilled, and I have more experience in what it is that I was doing. So I never in a million years thought that I would be an elected official. In fact, when I was approached by my mentors and who suggested that I run for office, I said no. And it is very common for women to say no to running for office. Women statistically say no 7 times more than men do. No one ever really has to ask men to run for office. They get the bright ideas themselves. And so, of course, all the things ran through my head that I think most women would want to consider: who will take care of my children, who will protect us from big, mean people who say evil things, the world of politics, the split-tongue politician, the episodes of Scandal and The West Wing. Do I want to be a part of that world? And the answer was, absolutely not. But once I started to learn a little bit more about what a position like this could do for the lives of others, it really did resonate with me, because I came from an artistic background. My degree is actually in theater arts. I thought that I was going to be an Academy Award winner and be working in entertainment and doing Tyler Perry movies. I mean, that was definitely my plan. And but I know one would always say that April's the one who does theater for social justice. April's the one that always wants to do the play 12 Angry Men over some love story. I always wanted to tell a story about struggle, about pain, and how to overcome it. And that's because I just really always been in touch with the human condition and people's struggle, because I myself have faced struggle. I've witnessed people face struggle and sorrow and tragedy and trauma. And it just causes a discomfort in my heart and just in my spirit. And I've always been the person that has wanted to make a difference. So when the opportunity to run for office came, because of what a politician meant to a novice like me, I wanted nothing to do with it. But I had a lot of people in my life who encouraged me to see the positive sides of running for office. And lucky for me, I decided to do it, a 4-way race 7 years ago against 3 other men. And I came out on top, not because I had a political science degree like any of them, not because I came from a pedigree of powerful politicians, but because I was on social services, because I was collecting a childcare stipend, because I was collecting SNAP benefits, and because I was unashamed to tell people who I was engaging in as a voter that I understood their struggle, and I wanted to get into office to make the process better for them. That's why I won. And so later, 7 years later, no one is having to ask me, April, will you be the chair of the legislature? April, will you be the majority leader? April, will you run for office? The opportunity to run for state senate came, and I was like, I should do that. I know I can do it. So, growing in the space that you're in definitely helps prepare you for future opportunities.
Great. Thank you, ladies. Obviously, you were all picked for this panel today because of the topic of occupational segregation and being sort of in traditionally male-dominated fields. And I know we're a little bit on the early side, but I would love, it sounds like we've got a lot of really great thoughts here in the discussion, and kind of explore a little bit more about what does that mean and what does that look like? So for each of you, we can go round robin, however you want to. But what advice would you give for someone going in to your field? Obviously, particularly for women going into your field. What experience would you share with them, and sort of advice, or if you were giving yourself advice as you were entering the field, what would I have said to myself, knowing that there's this disparate representation in my field?
I'll jump in if that's all right. And I'm sorry, I don't know if my camera's working. I tried turning it on and off. If you can see me or not, I apologize about that. But as far as
we can't, but that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, sorry. Advice for someone going into skilled trades and construction, things that worked for me is staying humble was important. While I really had something to prove, not just as a woman, but as somebody new to the industry, I think maintaining a humble attitude and inviting lessons wherever they appeared was strategically important. Not coming out of the gate too strong, I think allowed other folks to feel a little more comfortable with it. People think that you're super headstrong as a woman in a male-dominated field, and I think there's some preconceived notions with that. And by being a sponge and absorbing from folks around you, as opposed to being aggressive, worked really well for me. People were very willing to teach and share and guide and mentor and all that sort of stuff. And then I think the other side of it too was I didn't come at it with any preconceived notions. I wasn't hyper fixated on a glass ceiling or the fact that it was a male dominated industry, or I wasn't expecting, to be discriminated against or treated differently. And I just went in and did my job. And I think, open-mindedness on my side helped to foster open-mindedness with my peers.
Yeah, very similar for me as well. I would piggyback off of that. So keeping an open mind and being flexible, for my kind of career path, I would think, just being able to take opportunities that weren't necessarily it was a long-term game. So, it wasn't something easy. It wasn't something that necessarily gave a good opportunity immediately, but learning through experiences and taking those opportunities, eventually pays off. So basically anything that you can do to, further your career, any new technology that is coming up, which is every day currently, just allowing yourself to envision yourself in different positions and change your pathway as you go along. Because, so for example, I started out thinking that I'm going to be managing people, went into a supervisory job, then a management job. When I changed into compliance, I actually had to give that up. Eventually I had a compliance team. Eventually, things change again. So kind of being flexible with how you envision yourself and what the different opportunities might be, because that kind of changes daily, and keeping that open mind. So when I'm saying learning, it's not necessarily just going back, to get a degree, but just keeping tabs on news in your industry, keeping a good network, so you can get those different ideas and information, whether it is on how to handle challenges or, just basically giving you that opportunity to have a soundboard, if you will, for challenges that you might be facing and getting help that way.
Yeah, I agree with that last one. Something I had written down here as we were chatting about this is find a mentor. And it would be great if you could find a mentor that looked like you, but that's probably not going to happen in a lot of these fields, right? And I think don't let that be a barrier to still finding somebody that can mentor you career-wise, can be a sounding board, someone that you can be honest and open with, and really can help guide you. And when you have those moments of self-doubt, they can be like, help prop you up. So I think finding a mentor is key. I think also, don't be afraid to be honest and be you and like own who you are. And of course you're slightly different. So, I have a daughter, and, thinking about what April was saying, I remember the point where I was pregnant and I had to tell my commander, and I was so nervous to do so because I was like the person who was always saying, hey, I'm not going to have kids. I'm going to wait. I'm in the Army. It doesn't work for my career. And I finally told my commander, a man, of course, and I was nervous, and he was unbelievably supportive, which was surprising. And, I think that was a lesson to me, like, hey, people might surprise you with their human side and how supportive they're actually going to be of you and what you're going to go through, and the changes that are going to have to be made and accommodations and things like that. And then lastly is, don't be similar to that. Don't be afraid to connect and be vulnerable, I think has been a key part of being in an environment where, again, it's, nobody's talking about it, but it's clear that I'm slightly different than everybody else in that, I connect, especially with those who work for me. I've noticed that a lot of them are more willing to come to me, talk to me about their personal problems, talk to me about what's going on in their life, ask for advice. So be willing to be open and honest with them. And just because, you know, you're somebody that maybe is looking for a leadership role or is in a leadership role, it doesn't mean that you can't still be human and connect with folks and share your struggles, and connect with them that way.
That was beautiful. I would say in my field, relationship building is key. You cannot get anything done alone because you have a heart of gold, passion, you're well researched, you got a big mouth. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody that is usually in the space that you're in has equal, if not more, power than you do. And the way that things get done and that you serve the community is by not just having your vote, but others vote with you. And so no vote or no law gets passed because of one person. That's the beautiful thing about our government system, the checks and the balances of it all. And so if you don't have people who can have a conversation with you, a coffee with you, lunch with you, even if you are politically usually not aligned, you're going to have a difficult time delivering. And so the things that have allowed me to get further and become successful and have 18 local laws passed in 6 or 7 years is because of the relationship building that I've done with community agencies, community partners, other elected officials, block club leaders. I mean, you name it. If there's a person there, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to let them know who I am. I want to know about them. I'm not doing all the talking. I'm listening to the things that are important to them. And when they think of me and when they remember me, I want them to remember someone who cared about saying hello, who cared about saying good morning. So relationship building in government it matters, and it's actually the only way to be successful. If people don't like you, they're not going to vote for you. If people don't like you, they're not going to vote with you. And so if people feel, and not everybody's going to like you, but if people don't feel like they can talk to you or like you're a rational person, I would also say that of trying to clear your mind of stereotypes is something that is super important to women, especially women of color. I've spent a lot of time investing in trying to not be an angry Black woman in moments when I was angry. And I am Black and I'm a woman, and there's nothing wrong with being angry at times. And because society has pigeonholed that as a negative connotation against Black women, I want to stay away from it. And let me tell you something, I'm a human being. If you make me angry, I'm angry. I don't want to be late because I'm taking kids to school because I'm a single mom. And I don't want people to think that there's some hard burden struggle or see me as this broke person, you know, because I am the breadwinner from my home. So this idea of women are aggressive if they're in male dominated spaces, or that's why she don't got a man, or that's why this, or that's why that, like letting that stuff live in your head will absolutely cause you to have more hiccups. So I really, really appreciate the comments about being yourself, being authentically yourself. And I think people appreciate me more and feel more comfortable with me because I just show up as April. The April that you see at the dais every Thursday leading the legislature is the same April that you're going to get if you run into me, you know, at Fridays with my family, you know what I mean, on a Friday night. So be yourself. Do not let what people think about women dictate how you move. And then I'll wrap up with something that I usually share quotes from very famed people or my mentors, but I've been doing this a little while now and I've gotten a little knowledge myself. So this is an April Baskin-ism. Ignorance doesn't deserve a response and no doesn't need an explanation. Sometimes people just don't get it. They just don't get me. They don't get where I come from. They don't get my lived experience. And they're going to say things, not because they're even sometimes trying to intentionally be disrespectful. They are just unfamiliar with being in spaces with women like me, having authority, having the ability to be in charge and make a decision and not need permission. And if they're ignorant, that's on them. I don't have to respond to every single thing. And sometimes responding is how people develop those stereotypes that I was previously talking about. Because we get so desperate to kind of check somebody and put them in their place and prove the stereotype wrong. But I don't care if you think that, you know, I'm passive because, or I'm late because, you know, I had to take my kids to school or whatever you may think. Your ignorance about me and my lived experience and what I do does not deserve a response from me. And the biggest thing that I've answered with is this, I want to apologize when I have to say no. No does not need an explanation. If my answer is no, it's a complete sentence. And if somebody would like me to expand on why, if I feel like it's the time and the place and the appropriate, there's a time, there's nothing wrong with expanding on a decision that I've made, being a woman in leadership. But I don't have to offer that. When I say no, the answer, it's no. And then we move on. And there's tons of people of different genders who have no problem with saying no, and it's well respected. When we say no, sometimes it's deemed as being difficult. And because I know that in the back of my mind, I want to give an explanation why. And I've had to, for lack of better words, train myself to not do that. So yeah, I got a bunch of them, but I mean, we got other stuff to talk about. So.
No, I love it. I love it. I'm sort of picking up on a couple of themes here and want to ask another question, which is for women who might be considering going into each of your different fields, what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions of working in your specific industry that you might want to dispel, you know, for them, so they don't feel maybe discouraged from going into each of your fields?
I'll start with me because I have a field that is constantly, unfortunately, in this political climate, represented not in the best light. And then, like me, when I was getting into it, I related it to everything I saw on TV. So everyone's not deceitful, stealing, you know, doing horrible, awful things. I have seen that less than I have seen good-hearted people who run for office because they have values that they want to be prominent in decision-making in government and with public dollars, because they have families and neighbors and children and community members that they want to make sure are taken care of. So this idea that politics is bad or corrupt is just, it's just not the case. It's not my experience. I have had such amazing opportunities to change so many people's lives and to fight for people who don't know exactly how to put the sentences together to fight for themselves. And it has been the biggest privilege of my life. And if I could do it all again and choose that path of going to work in a Tyler Perry studio or get an Academy Award for being in a film with Meryl Streep or doing exactly what I'm doing now, I can't believe, but the truth of the matter is I would probably go the path that I am on now.
Wonderful. And for those of you in some other industries, what are some of the misconceptions that you'd like to dispel so that other women looking to go into your fields don't feel discouraged or intimidated or shy away from?
I think for construction, there's almost just the idea that women don't go into construction, period. We're really largely underrepresented. I'm super fortunate. Our project management team at Montante is women dominated, but that's highly unusual. Pretty much everywhere else I've been, I was the only woman on the floor. And I could see where maybe a lot of folks, let's say driving around, you see a highway crew and you see the only woman out there is not doing one of the leadership roles. I guess I would just try to tell people that you can work your way up. We are out there. There are organizations to support women in leadership, specifically in construction, and to seek those out if this is something that interests you. And then I guess similarly, women in STEM in general, it's a burgeoning field. And I think a lot of women are pigeonholed away from anything with a technical side, and that's unfortunate. And if you're looking at a major in college, let's say that's historically male dominated, don't let that get you. There's plenty of us out here, and we're all here to support you through.
For the financial industry, it usually is that you can't have a work-life balance. And while the hours can be long, there is flexibility. So as long as you're honest with yourself, what your passions are and what are your non-negotiables, you can usually work something out. So you can pursue whatever passion you have outside of work.
I think a couple things in the military, especially for those who don't have a lot of exposure to it. I just looked up the statistic really quick that at this point, the military overall, all branches, is less than 20% female. And something important to keep in mind is that at about a mid-career point is a place where you see that go from about 20% for a lot of folks down to less than 10. And I think that just coincides a lot with lifetime of life. And I think that would be the one thing I would tell people is that, don't be afraid to ask if you're someone who's a planner, and don't be afraid to ask at that point in life to say, hey, could I go to this other kind of job, or could I step back into this other role for a few years if you're someone who wants to have a family? Because it is very challenging to try and have a family and to manage military life, but it is doable. And I think, it's becomes at that point almost something like I have to, I feel like I have to stick around because I want other people to see somebody that looks like them. And I want them to be able to say, hey, I can do that. And, I hope that that's something that people, at the lower ranks in the military are seeing. So I would say, hey, that's, a misconception is that you can't ask for what you want to try and have, a work-life balance and a family. And I would say also, over the past few years, so many more career fields have opened up where there are very few things now that are closed to women that historically, there would be a lot more kind of a few direct paths that women were allowed to take in the military. And now almost everything is available for women throughout the military. So you can pursue any kind of job that you want, which I think is something that people don't necessarily know.
Great, thank you for that. I think sort of along those lines, when women get into these roles, and of course this may change over time, whether you're, brand new in your career or you're, a seasoned professional. And maybe you could even highlight those differences, but how then do you handle situations where you either, you're going to be the only woman in the room, or you walk in and, doors open, you're like, oh, I'm the only woman in the room. Maybe how did you handle that early in your career? And maybe how do you handle that now, if, as a more seasoned professional? And is there a difference? What kind of advice would you give?
I would say I think it became, I didn't realize, like the statistic I gave you on the only female colonel, I realized that in a meeting. I think it became so normal to me that I didn't even realize it. And then therefore I didn't do anything. Like I didn't do anything different, but thinking about it in hindsight, perhaps that was an advantage because I didn't do anything different than I would have done otherwise. I just was, like we talked about, my normal self, did my job, briefed my stuff, or, talked with whoever I needed to talk to. And so I didn't see it as I needed to do anything different. And so I just acted how I needed to act for my role. And, I'll tell a quick little story about how I realized that fact. And then I looked it up to fact check myself. But I was in a meeting much like this, except that there was about 40 people on it. And it was all like the decision makers for both the Army and the Air Force for the state of Connecticut. And I'm in this Zoom meeting, and in the Army, the military, we don't turn on our cameras. So it's just audio when it comes up to your turn. And I remember I was there and my daughter was like jumping around on the couch and like yelling, watching cartoons and being loud. And I was like, listen, when mom has to talk, I only have to talk for like 3 minutes. I'm going to mute the TV and I just need you to, you know, kind of be quiet in the background. She's like, okay. So finally, you know, again, this is all like the generals, all the people in the state that are the decision makers. So it comes to my turn. I mute the TV about 25 seconds into the thing. She unmutes it. She's jumping around, yelling in the background. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like, so then I'm muting it, like muting my thing, trying to yell at her, come back on, do my briefing. And
We've
as
been
I
there.
finished that, right, I finished that and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, what, this was so stressful. What am I doing here? Like, she's upset now. I'm upset. I feel like I'm an idiot. And then I look over on the side of the meeting, right? And I'm like, ugh. So I'm looking down to see if somebody's there. And I look down the list of all the attendees. And I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing here. Because I'm the only person in this entire meeting who is a single mom taking care of this child at the same time. And that's what I'm doing here. Like, I can't leave because I need to stay, right? So, you know, I think that was slightly off topic for the question, but like,
Perfect.
I think, you know, continuing to just do what you need to do. And to me, it's not ignoring it, but it's just kind of continuing to be yourself in the space, take up space, be who you need to be, and just continue to drive on with your life and do what you need to do.
As you're talking, Alyssa, I'm just like nodding at my head and kind of smiling because I realized as the question was posed to us, I'm in the same boat. I've been the only woman in every meeting for 20 years of my career, practically. I don't even pay attention to it. It's not something that phases me. I don't even notice. In fact, I notice the opposite when there's a woman in a project management role, you know, a counterpart. I'm like, oh, hi, I'm not the only one. This is cool. So that's exciting. And I would echo, you know, April said it earlier, Alyssa saying it, everybody saying it. It just be yourself. You know, don't let the fact that you're the only woman there change anything about how you're presenting yourself or how you're representing your ideas. You're there for a reason. You rose to this echelon of your career. You're climbing the ladder. You're there with purpose. Another thing that April said earlier that really struck a chord is struggling with imposter syndrome. And I think that sometimes being the only woman in the room can emphasize those feelings a little bit. I know it's something that I deal with also. And I wish I wouldn't. And I wish more of us would talk about it because we were picked, you know, again, echoing what was said. We were picked, we were there for a reason, and we've earned it. And so I think just kind of trying to keep that in the back of your mind and forget about if there's 10 women or no women, doesn't matter.
For me, something that I'm doing still in my career and I was doing earlier is basically being prepared for each meeting. I was a little bit more forceful with my ideas in the beginning, and now I'm more likely to build the relationships and try to get consensus before we actually go into the meetings to make the decisions, finding allies, especially, I mean, for me, it would be male allies to you know, consider things, kind of, you know, have the conversations in advance, figure out what challenges that might be brought up and prepare for that is helpful. But I love that we went into being yourself and being a woman. Something our CEO, who is the only female CEO actually in the financial industry, she wore a hot pink dress in one of the meetings, and that just totally spoke to me. You know, I was like, okay, we're unapologetic. Here we are. We can do this. So be yourself. Yeah.
Bo's comments on strategizing is key. We do, whether we realize it or not, or appreciate it or not, come into male-dominated spaces at a disadvantage. And so being aware of that and doing the prep work, building a friend or two before you go into the meeting, thinking about, how this person tends to respond to ideas. So how can I present it in a way where it will be received is always key for women. And I think women are magical, where we're almost just born with a gift to naturally strategize and multitask. So being aware that that is a superpower and maximizing it is something that is key. I just don't even care anymore. I don't think about it anymore. It's not really a thing. And I think that's because I've just become more comfortable with myself. In all honesty, my order of, I guess, disenfranchisement in male dominant spaces tended to be ageism first, sexism second, and racism last, which tends to surprise a lot of people. So what do you do when you're in spaces with women? And the bias isn't necessarily the fact that you share a gender, but the fact that you're under the age of 35 and you're just a kid and you don't know much. And sit down, honey, you got stuff to learn. There's nothing absolutely wrong with having a mentor, building that relationship, but you want to bring the value that you can bring to a space in the most respectful way, of course. And so I overcame that by getting older. So that happened easily. And to be mindful to not call people in their 30s honey or sweetie, because I didn't like it very much when I was in my 30s, my 20s. And then I prepare, like Bo said. If something happens with school or there's a storm or something, I had to present a proclamation at the Science Museum this morning, and I had to be there at 8 o'clock, and my son's school refused to accept him before 8:20. And so guess who was on stage presenting a proclamation with me? My 4-year-old son. So I prepare people for that reality because it is my reality. I'm just letting you know that I am going to have a deputy with me this morning. He is 4. His name is Josiah. And I don't feel weird about it. I don't feel ashamed about it because that is me. That is my life. And building more relationships with women who have the same lifestyle as me has also built my confidence as well. So knowing that I'm not the only one, even though probably the world or society or some egotistical male would want me to believe that they've never seen anything like this before. Bringing your child to a meeting? What in the world? It's like, come on, you know what I mean? That's not the case. And so just being more aware and more comfortable with who I am and the fact that I was picked and I'm here and I'm the chair of the legislature, and we got a job to do, and I'm here to do that job despite my 4-year-old turning on the TV and jumping back and forth in the that has happened. That is like a everyday for me. You know what I mean? But I let people know, just let you know, my son is home today and he is jumping around in the background, and I'm going to turn off my camera so it is not a distraction to you, but I am present, and I have the agenda in front of me. Let's gavel it and let's go. Just, kind of set the circumstances in the beginning. It's kind of like when they say, oh, if you're getting bullied on in school, make the joke about yourself first, make the joke about your hair or your nose before anybody else can do it. And there's no joke about our lifestyles or being women or the things that we have to. But I mean, if it's a point of discomfort, or if it's a distraction to you, lay it on the table, and you will be surprised at people's humanity and the fact that they really don't even care. as much as it makes us uncomfortable.
I love this. These are all words of wisdom, and I'm sure that we all, find these situations very relatable in male-dominated and not male-dominated fields. I would love to open it up for questions from our participants. If folks have questions that they want to ask either the group or some of the individual speakers, feel free to type into the chat, and I'll go ahead and cultivate some questions from there. And of course, if nobody does, I've always got lots of questions percolating in my mind, but feel free to type into the meeting chat anything that you might want to ask folks. I'll give that a minute.
I don't know if you want me to just go for it or to ask
Yeah,
questions.
feel free, absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you all so much. This has been really great to hear all of your stories and, kind of trajectories into your different paths. But I guess my question for each of you is, I feel like it's a lot easier to tell people about how to deal with imposter syndrome versus actually dealing with it myself. So if you have any ways in which you manage imposter syndrome, especially as a younger woman in the field who can have a leadership role, or someone who can, present as young, who is, can be told, oh, you'll learn that when you're older, or you'll get to that stage in your career or something like that, can deal with some, there's certain comments that can be made in your job. So I guess, how do you kind of deal with those situations, and kind of what is your best advice for those kind of situations, if that makes sense?
Well, I can offer a couple things. One is keep track of your accomplishments, and they don't have to be the biggest accomplishment in the world. Make small chunks, milestones, and as you reach them, you have something to look back on that, would give you a tangible, here is what I've accomplished. And the more you do it and the more different things you take on, there will be so much more to look on, so you would be less afraid to take more different and, potentially more challenging things as you go along.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with believing that self-worth in the position that you're in. For me, it resonated as it was a mistake. I'm not supposed to be the majority leader. There's a reason why I'm the youngest chair in history, and it's because people who are my age are not supposed to ever become the chair of the legislature so young. And so, like Bo said, the way that I was able to come away from that was, one, I created spaces for me to have victories. So I hosted like a community coffee roundtable every month, and I worked hard to make sure that I found a success in that people came to it, that I addressed legislative issues, that people were able to come to me with community concerns. And when people left that community coffee conversation every single month feeling empowered and feeling more knowledgeable about government, it made me feel quicker like I'm supposed to be here and I'm worthy. So in addition to what Bo said, which is tracking your victories, don't be afraid to rig the system a bit and set up a victory for yourself. Start a newsletter, start a podcast, start a book club, do a young women's group of professionals. Give yourself the victory, because when people, when you see your talents resonate with others and you see the victories, you're going to have less moments where you feel like you're not worthy to be in a space because you've had victories under your belt.
I really appreciate both of your suggestions. As someone who definitely suffers from imposter syndrome on something of a regular basis, celebrating your wins, and even, like Bo said, privately kind of marking down some daily successes to, encourage yourself are great suggestions. And that's huge. As you guys were talking, I was trying to think of, like, where does imposter syndrome even come from? Why do we feel like this? And I think for me, some of it is the career itself is challenging. And every day I'm confronted with something that maybe I don't know the answer to, or some technical thing that I don't understand. And that's hard, to always be in a position of I don't know. And I think perhaps I feel like I should know, and that's the struggle. And I think taking a step back and trying to give yourself some space to say, like, you want to know, you can't be expected to know everything. You want to know, you are going to learn, you're going to research, you're going to do what it takes. But don't get down on the fact that you don't have the answer just right at your fingertips. Give yourself time to grow into it. So
only thing I would add is that when you celebrate your successes, do it in a tangible or like actual way, right? Because I think that helps. And even maybe have some friends that maybe even don't work with you, aren't in your same career field, but friends that you can say, hey, you know, when something good happens to me at work, I want to share it with this group. And you know, whether it's going out for a meal or a walk or taking a day off or whatever it is, like reward yourself in a way where you get that feedback loop of saying, hey, I did this and I get to, you know, have this little bit of a reward. And it's kind of a way to make it real for yourself.
Wonderful. I think those are all really valid points. I think, you know, imposter syndrome is just one of those things that we hear echo a lot. It's a recurring theme, certainly amongst, you know, female professionals, but lots of professionals. I do have one more question. I'm not sure if we'll be able to get to it. I know we have a few other housekeeping items, so I might pick one person to respond to the question, which is, how do you handle being in a male-dominated industry when there may be some resistance or hesitation to DEI initiatives? I don't know if that's something that maybe Bo or Jess or maybe more from an industry perspective. I'm not sure, Bo, if that's something, if there's DEI at your workplace, but I'll try and wrap this one up with the 1 o'clock time frame looming large.
Yeah, we are kind of lucky that we have a lot of employee networks. So that is a great opportunity to see other you know, initiatives that are going on, meet other people, and kind of, you know, have the toolkit to handle, you know, those types of initiatives. I don't know how it is in other spaces. City just happens to be one of the employers that really, you know, invest in those types of initiatives.
Great. Thank you. I am just going to start to wrap up here. Again, we've got just a few seconds left. Let me cycle through a little. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So just wanted to thank everybody for coming today, and certainly to thank Bo, Jess, Alyssa, and April for joining us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your candor and advice. It's been invaluable to, I'm sure, everybody on here. Also, another thank you to our sponsor, Impressia Bank, for sponsoring the virtual speaker series. This has been a really impactful series and a great way to highlight the work. Thank you to the Western New York Women's Foundation for commissioning the Pathways to Progress report, for elevating issues affecting women, and for empowering us with information, resources, and opportunities to connect, such as this. And please, please, please join us on November 4th for the Pay Gap speaker series here. It's negotiating salary, current pay gap data, and salary resources. It's a really wonderful way to empower yourselves and get a bit more information from these dynamic experts in the field. So please, if you can join us for that as well. It will be our last webinar in the series. This will be available on social media and on YouTube. If you don't already follow the Western New York Women's Foundation, please feel free to follow us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, LinkedIn, and anywhere else. And if you want to see a recording of this or share it with maybe colleagues who weren't able to join us today, but you think would be valuable, there is a YouTube channel as well. And I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say, Suzanne?
Thank you.
No, I just want to thank all of you for participating with us and thank everyone for joining us. And like Allison said, please like, share, follow, comment, and spread the news because the pay gap is the widest it's been in 20 years. So we have to accelerate the pace of change and we have to move the needle faster for women. And it's going to take all of us collectively to do that. So thank you for taking the time to spend your lunch with us.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you all.